Meghan, it's great to have you here all the way from Sweden.
Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. I want to talk to you about that afterwards. But you're part of a show that we're doing about ordinary women doing extraordinary things. And I think that you just really encapsulate all that. So I want to hear a little bit about your story. I mean, you're from northern Toronto, you know, and I say northern, it's like, okay, a little more north than Toronto, but for the world's sake, we're giving them some, you know, perspective. But talk to me about how this whole life of yours started, because you've done some pretty phenomenal things in Sweden.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And I'd say there's a lot of pivotal moments, like whenever we look back in our life and kind of track where have we come from and where did we end up. I think there's many things that kind of play a role. But I would say even from quite a young age, I think I've burned for social justice issues. So I was kind of reflecting on the fact that Robin Hood, the Disney movie, was my favorite movie growing up. And then I had also a father who treated me basically very extremely equal to my brother. And I think that really impacted me, and he just always talked about how strong I was as a woman, and I think that really kind of I think that I carried that through. And since then I've really had a passion for women and equipping women, working with women who have in various ways been mistreated, marginalized, etc. And I think a really pivotal moment was also when I was a teen. I had a boyfriend at that time who basically admitted to me that he struggled with pornography, and I was totally crushed. I was, you know, this naive girl who had no idea that almost all men and young boys are exposed to pornography at a very young age, and many struggle with it in secret because most of us don't talk about the issue. I think partly there's a lot of people that don't have the knowledge about it, but then also there's a lot of people that bear a lot of shame and don't talk about it with children. So that I went from kind of being extremely angry, both at him and then even to these women on the screen. I felt that they've taken something away from me. But both that boyfriend and then myself were able to get support, and that anger turned from anger to empathy, because I realized that this young 11-year-old boy was exposed to these images and had no one to talk to about it, no one to keep him accountable, etc. And that's the reality for pretty much all boys in this day and age.
Wow, that seems so young.
Yeah, absolutely.
So was that the impetus for Reality Check?
Yeah.
'Cause I want to hear about that, because when I heard about that, when I was reading about it, that you got the support from, you know, in Sweden, I was like, oh my goodness, that's huge. So talk to me about that.
Right.
That's crazy.
So that was like when I was, 17, 18.
Yeah, okay.
And what struck me was just, as I mentioned, that no one talked about it. This massive global issue related to, you know, connected to prostitution, human trafficking, and yet no one was talking about it. So from that time, this kind of seed, you know, was planted, but it took years to be able to then start something that I'm working with today. But I think what I've done along the way is just whenever there's a small door opened, I try and say yes, even if it means, you know, emailing someone. It can be as simple as emailing someone who I want to maybe connect with. It can be, okay, can you do this talk here and there? And I think we all, you know, can struggle with things like fear, I'm not good enough, or who am I to, you know, do these kind of things. But I think just taking that step forward, and I think God has always told me to just go for it.
Yeah. So you created Reality Check. Explain that a little bit, and then, because I can't believe you've spoken in front of the EU, in front of the government, like in big platforms.
Yeah.
In what you're doing.
So Reality Check, from that time then, I realized, okay, I want to be able to educate, to spread awareness about this issue, and to provide resources for people to be able to have those conversations with young people. So we provide lesson plans, curriculums, educational films to teachers, parents, and other professionals to be able to have those conversations with young people. And then, so that's kind of our prevention work. And then my organization, Talita, also works directly with women who've been exploited in prostitution, pornography, and human trafficking.
But how did the government get, you know, connected with you?
That's
How did you get funded by them?
It's a good question. I think in Sweden they're extremely progressive regarding gender equality. So from, you know, decades ago, they have really prioritized creating opportunities for women. And then for many years they've also had this very unique legislation whereby it's illegal to buy sex but legal to sell, and what that the message there is that prostitution is actually men's violence against women, and so they want to make sure that the women are not further marginalized, while the men, it's clear that they're committing a crime towards the women when they buy sex.
Right.
So this is kind of then, I think, led to the government being open about initiatives like this.
So you presented it to them.
Yep.
This educational, resources you have. How much did you need to get it going in the schools?
So for 3 years, we've received like $500,000.
Wow.
But our hope is then we just continue, and there's been such a demand for it, curiosity, and so many teachers and other parents, etc., jumping on board. So it's been an amazing journey.
Are there moments, Megan, where you're just like, I'm a girl from like north of Toronto, and here I am on platforms, helping to give just support about pornography or about ending, human trafficking? Like, are there moments you go,
it's
wow.
pretty, yeah,
okay.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, in my wildest dreams, imagine that this girl who was crushed and went through a lot of pain, finding out that that boyfriend at that time consumed pornography, to now this, where I'd be able to do research on the subject, where I'm working directly with women exploited in the industries and working with young people. I mean, but I give all the credit to God, because and I think it's about identifying, our gifting, what are my gifts, and also waiting for God's timing, because there was moments where I knew that God was giving me this dream to do something like Reality Check, but it felt like, okay, things aren't falling into place in my kind of timing. But eventually, step by step, God made it happen. And again, it's all about His timing.
Yeah, that's
and
really
just
good.
going for it.
Yeah. For young women that are listening to you and are saying, I'm pretty ordinary, like, what can I offer to the world? Or some may have like a burning desire to make change, and they have no idea where to begin. What would you say to them?
I'd say, one, make connections. Like, just shoot out that email, find what are my local, whether it's women's shelters or something that you're interested in. How can I get connected to people? Because that's where all those opportunities emerge.
Yeah.
I'd also say that ordinary people do extraordinary things. You see that all through the Bible as well. God always uses often our weaknesses or our pain and suffering to bring about restoration, healing. And even working at my organization, I see all these other people who are involved. So whether that's giving resources, using their gifting, their talents, etc., to support the women that we work with, and it just blows them away, because, say a woman who is, a yoga instructor and wants to support our girls and women by teaching them yoga. The girls are just like, flabbergasted that ordinary people want to support them.
Yeah.
So honestly, I feel like every single person can use their gifting to get involved in, whether it's issues related to, violence against women, gender equality, but it's, there's so many issues out there. So there's so much to be done.
I want to, end our conversation by just referencing the name of the organization, Talita, because it comes from, actually, I didn't know this, like a biblical reference, and I think it's a beautiful reference and name to kind of encapsulate all that you do and to empower ordinary women to do extraordinary things.
Absolutely.
Let's finish with that thought about what that's about.
So the name is Talita, and it comes from the verse in the Bible where Jesus is standing at the little girl's bedside, and she's died, and then he says, Talita koum, and that means little girl, rise up. And that's our vision in our organization. We want to see young girls rise up to a new life, and that's the most amazing part of my job, is I get to witness these girls' lives completely transformed. So these girls who were exploited, who had no hope, who had no support, go from being at the lowest of the low to becoming police officers, to becoming trauma therapists who want to give back. And it's amazing to just be part of the process. And I love the name of your show, See, Hear, Love, because that's actually totally what we work with. So it's about seeing these women who have never maybe been seen before, hearing them, listening to them, hearing their stories, and then honestly, it's all about love. That's how they're transformed, and anyone can be a part of that journey.
Megan, thank you. You're the first person who actually referenced the show name. I'm getting emotional now thinking about that, because that's exactly what my heart is for.
That's amazing.
Because I want women, I think that Talita for, you know, young girl to rise up. That's exactly what my hope is for in this show.
Amazing.
So thank you for your presence, and thank you for the extraordinary things that you're doing and making a difference in this world.
Likewise. Thank you
Thanks.
so much.